Greetings, brothers. Allow me a moment to see. I'm online. Before we start, doing business. Let me just do this mic check. Let me know if I'm coming in okay. Let me know if I'm okay. It's a bit echoey, isn't it? Do that. If I get any feedback, when I first switch them. Okay, let me just. If I get any feedback. Let's see about a little bit of mood music. Some of you might be just winding down. Some of you might just be just tuning in to relax. So let's see if we can get into a bit of a mood. Here's a piece that I wrote. See if you like it. Sorry. From the top. Again. Okay, how about what one of the oldies? Last one. Thank you so much for listening. I think this mic's a bit echoey. Let me just switch. We'll take a second. There we are. That should be a little better. This mic should be a little bit better. So again, let me just do this mic check. Let's see if it's any better. Let me just do this mic check. Let's see if it's any better. It's much better, isn't it? Yeah, so again, I'll try to cover all the comments after decades of censorship and political turmoil. YouTube has become pretty much a extremely censored place. So if you don't see your comments, it's usually not because I've or any of my I don't think I have any moderators. I don't think I've got any moderators. I don't think moderators are necessary when you've only got a handful of viewers. But anyway, today I thought, while I was walking through the carpet of autumn leaves, taking in that winter air, I was thinking about our entertainments, our habits of relaxation, and all those little comforts we try and surround ourselves in. And most of us know not to overindulge, but I was thinking about that age-old topic about mental and emotional detachment. Mental emotional detachment, not always voluntary or not always something we do consciously. Particularly emotional detachment. I think as you get older, as men drift into their 40s and 50s, we become more emotionally detached. As I said, not always voluntarily. It's something I think that you learn to do, sometimes as a coping mechanism, but eventually you learn it as a type of discipline. And as we've discussed in our past podcasts, it can be a very useful mental tool, particularly if you have long-term plans or there's some obstacles or hurdles you can foresee in your long-term plans that might involve some past events, some past encounters that require you to detach yourself emotionally to either do your job well or to get past a certain barrier. It could be you dislike to do something that you have to do for the greater good, i.e. Me personally, I dislike filling in forms. I think a lot of the questions are repetitive, are unnecessary, and some of them are downright intrusive and do violate. I mean, it's strange to think that questions can violate your personal privacy and your personal dignity, but some of the questions they ask are, your sexual preferences, your relational, financial, very intimate questions, but they're necessary for organizations, companies that don't know you. Obviously they have to find out these personal details, but these are just examples. Now, I thought something, I know those of you that listen to me regularly, I know that it's something that we've talked about before, but something we haven't mentioned is the difference between mental detachment and emotional detachment. The difference is being emotionally detached from something means you can still remember an event, a person, without being overcome with emotion or without feeling any excessive hatred or love or sentimentality for that event or for that person. This is normally done because you either have to keep dealing with that person, might be an ex-wife or ex-partner, could be a colleague that you have to work with. You have to get past these emotional barriers. So you have to become emotionally detached. Interestingly enough, becoming mentally detached from something, meaning where you forget something, is a lot more difficult. But what is of note is something we say, English idiom, a phrase we have in English is to memorize something by heart. It's it's defined as having memorized something so deeply and so firmly that it becomes like second nature. So you feel it's instinctive. For example, you memorize a story, you memorize a paragraph, you memorize a formula, something that's normally quite complicated. But with memorization techniques, you've encompassed it, you've digested it, you've grasped it so well that you've memorized it by heart. It's an interesting phrase because it suggests you've emotionally memorized it. It's attached to you emotionally. That's why they say you memorize it by heart. Um, I think those of you that play music, those of you that play games, it's like when you play a certain level. You've done that level so many times, you know where all the uh, sprites, enemies are, you know exactly what equipment or where to move, etc. Your twitch muscles automatically go to the correct process. Same as playing music. When you play a piece of music so often, you don't think about the next note. It just comes out instinctively. You've memorized it by heart. Interestingly enough, when you mentally detach from something, it doesn't necessarily mean you've emotionally detached from it. So you've forgotten something. It never comes up in your daily thinking. It doesn't randomly conjure up in your head, but occasionally something will trigger that memory. There's still an emotional attachment to that memory. That's the difference between mental detachment and emotional detachment. Now, I said one of the reasons we detach emotionally and mentally is because of some traumatic, distressful event, which we've spent the last 10 years discussing how to avoid, disasters, how to reduce our risk of going insane. Um, but what we haven't talked much about is the dangers and the harms of becoming, how should I say, overly detached. And that is when you become too, or when mental detachment and emotional detachment becomes too excessive, you detach yourself from reality. Now, before you all jump to conclusions, that's not always a bad thing. We all, as I've mentioned before, we all have our entertainments. We all like to relax and forget about, our day's work, forget about the outside world. This, of course, is normal behavior, or you could say healthy. It's a healthy way of life. But where I think we'll all agree where it does become harmful is when you detach from reality to such a way as, for example, you become doped up in your head, or you cut away from society for such lengths of time that you're no longer looking after yourself. You're no longer dealing with everyday, regular necessities such as, paying the bills, such as exercising, such as washing yourself, cleaning your house, yeah, eating, all those things we've talked about. You've detached yourself so far from reality, you just don't want to deal with things like that. Now, I think this is the area that as a society we're drifting more and more towards. Not just the 99%, not just the people in poverty, in more and more the case, I think, the middle class and definitely our ruling class. They're becoming more and more detached from reality. Uh, we'll save discussing our crazy leaders, our crazy rulers for another day. I think there's plenty of talk and plenty of indicators and, you know, environmental factors that I think everybody can see and make up their own mind. And as for the rest of us, I think we are becoming more detached from reality as a coping mechanism. I know, I understand the financial burden, societal pressures. You got local authority, central authority. It seems everybody and everything has some demand from you. It seems inorganic as a life, doesn't it? So who can blame you if you just want to sit in your room and lock the door, turn off your phone, and just how would they say, veg out for days, weeks, months. And people do that. People do go, I think we used to call it ghosting, loads of terms for it, hikikomori, the sokashuka danshi. It's a phenomenon all over the world. I think every nation has a portions of society that are so disillusioned, are so traumatized by their life circumstances. They've just become totally detached to the point where they never go out. They eat or they go out the absolute minimum. So they'll go out only to buy food. Ideally, especially these days, they'll order it in, so they don't even need to go out to the grocery stores or anything like that. And they live like that until their money runs out or they become sick. As some of you that remember my old Shining Light channel, I think I showed a little clip of a report of a man who had done that for so long, he was no longer able to walk. Those of you that remember that film Seven with was it Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt? They had that guy that was shut in for so long, he'd just become totally emaciated. He just wasted away. Anyway, they're extreme examples, but what really would be useful for us to know is how do we deal with this mental phenomena, this mental emotional phenomena. I mean, I could, and really maybe some future point I'll point out some of the spiritual factors in there. But when it's boiled down to this, when you're at that point where you're emotionally, mentally detached from everything, I think you really have to go back to basics. I think the first thing, you have to understand that I think you really have to understand that you have to recognize that that is what you're doing. Quite often, when you are detached from everything, you don't analyze anything, or there's no critical thinking. That's become quite a dirty word, hasn't it? Critical thinking. But you're no longer looking at yourself anymore. So I think the first step is you have to recognize that you've become detached from reality. The reality is you have to act, or your habits, your routine have to reflect your circumstances. Now, all of you are in circumstances and situations individual to yourself. So there's no one fix for everybody. So obviously the basics for everyone are food, exercise, and food, exercise, and some type of hobby. You know, something to distract yourself from your what would you say, whatever's getting you down. So once you've done that, once you know that you have to keep moving and you have to be healthy, which is actually not an easy step. Quite a lot of people that they don't, and you must have seen it. Some people have given up on themselves so much they don't actually care. Don't care if they smell. They don't care if they're sick. They really only start doing anything when there's a lot of pain, when the muscle atrophy starts to affect their joints and stuff like that. And I was thinking, a lot of the time taken by doctors and hospitals is actually dealing with these what are commonly associated with old age, but quite often it's neglect. Yeah, of course, given enough time, every body will break down. Every human body has only a certain time limit, but you get quite relatively young people now in their 30s and 40s with physical conditions that are associated with old age. I know you could say it's the air, it's the food, it's the water. But as many of us know, it all begins with the mental and emotional detachment. It's gone to the point where they're detached from reality. Now, it doesn't always manifest itself as just being a shut-in. You see quite a lot of people that are quite eccentric, that are detached from reality. And recently, I observed, I've been watching YouTube for decades now, but on other social media where people post daily, so they'll talk daily on their Twitter or TikTok, these social media platforms where people post daily, and I've been following a few of these channels, and I've observed some of them will just out of what appears to me as just being out of the blue, they'll turn on their followers. They'll lash out at them, why were you not there at the last team event? They start blaming their followers to the point where they chase them away. And I thought just how reminiscent that was when friendships and romantic relationships break down.
suddenly you'll find, I know in our culture it's more associated with the men, but my personal opinion is quite often you see the woman just turn on her boyfriend or husband or worse, her kids. She'll start blaming the kids for all her problems. She'll blame her husband for her misery and for her sadness. And the reality is that it's really not their fault. Your followers donate, they support you financially, they moderate your room, they bring other users into your channel. They do a lot for you, and then for you to blame them for your lack of success, I think it stems from becoming detached from reality. And similarly with romantic relationships, to blame your husband all of a sudden because you're not satisfied in one area or another, or your financial status, or your emotional well-being, despite the fact that he spent years financially supporting you, emotionally supporting you, uh, physically comforting you. I'm talking about the general situation. I know that the um, there'll be the cases where, yeah, there are the men or the women that are actually to blame. But for most cases, for long-term relationships, that's normally what happens. They suddenly just turn on each other. And of course, if he's not in a strong frame of mind, he'll lash out at her too. But from the cases I know personally, uh, the man will usually just take it like a house clown. He'll just take it. Uh, he'll be the pincushion. But yeah, it stems from the detachment from reality. She doesn't see all the years of sacrifice, devotion, and dedication. Yeah, I know the the women will tell me of the cases where men do it to women, but I don't think I don't think it's discussed enough how it happens to men. But that's not what I wanted to talk about today. I want to talk about the fact that people become emotionally and mentally detached from reality, stemming from a coping mechanism, which results in eventually people making very poor decisions, unwilling or unable to manage their current or future affairs. Their mental acuity becomes impaired. They come up with very silly or poor ideas, or even having no ideas at all. Um, and these type of people, it's very difficult to put them back on track again. It's very difficult until they come to um, a breaking point. They come to a crash event. Something that snaps them out of their detachment. And I am seeing more and more of it. You know, not just within our leaders, our celebrities. I'm sure you've all heard of the celebrity that went had to go to rehab, or uh, your friend or your brother who just seemed to lose it one day, or resorted to some um, some habitual self-destructive habits. I see it more and more every day as well. Just um, not just with the homeless or with the people wandering the streets, but also the people at work as well, and the people in the offices, in the shops, just everywhere. People are just becoming more and more detached from reality. You know, lashing out at random people that really haven't done anything to them. And the opposite to that is they become attached to things that are quite harmful and damaging to them. They become delusional. Um, but one of the obvious ones, more common ones, they become attached to an idol. Who really, if they try to have anything to do with them, the pop star, the film star would take out a restraining order, which, as you all know, does happen. But also, there's still this delusion that our politicians, our leaders, our rulers, our prime ministers and presidents are going to fix it. There's, uh, and I do see it every election cycle. They think, and it is a delusional hope. They think that this time it'll be different. This time, the president, the prime minister, will get it right. He or she will fix the housing situation, the employment situation, the social security, the family, the neighborhood, the cultural. You hear it a lot. Our society's being invaded. Social cohesion's been eroded, and they think that this idol, this politician, this man or woman that's uh, part of the society that caused or perpetuates all these problems. And I wonder if that's not a coping mechanism in itself. You have false hope in a false deity, which I know the atheists will accuse the religious of. That's a discussion for another time. But um, I remember watching this, how would you say, this alternate, this uh, you could describe them as spiritual healers. They said that this uh, this environment of mental and emotional and spiritual uh, destruction and decay will continue until we'll get to a melting point where society will just keep destroying itself. And I just can't help thinking that's what's happening. I know you all must have, and I know it. Every year we talk about the collapse, the crash, nuclear war, and it does loom over us. It's a constant danger and risk, and I do believe that an all-out nuclear war will completely annihilate nearly all of, not just the human race, but all of life, most life on the planet, um, from the plants to the fish in the sea, um, and those that survive will be in a hell-like post-apocalyptic survival horror show. I know, but I don't know. I don't think it helps though, does it? It just seems to contribute to people's mental despair. But round here, it's quite nice to think of, well, okay, so what do we do about it then? And I think, first of all, as we've always said, you really need to understand where you are in this point in time, where you are, where you sit, what your position is in this point of your life. And then I know sometimes we discuss and it's something that it's something that's quite close to my heart as well, about getting away from the city in particular, not just society, because I think human beings, and I don't think it's said enough, I think human beings are organically good. I think we've come such a we've deviated so far from what human race should be, that now we've come to this way of thinking, like that crazy man said, I built something. He said that we need to get rid of most of the human population. I don't believe that. I think this is insanity itself. What kind of evil is that? We used to call it genocide, but now, sadly, our rulers are renaming it, remarketing it. But yeah, I would say the human being is actually a very valuable and very high creature. And I think we realize this when we find a good person, and we see how he acts, how he reacts, and we see the benefits we have from having this person in our lives. And I can't help pointing out that if people were for sale, how much would you pay for a certain human being? I know the lonely men amongst the manosphere. If you put to them, well, if women were for sale, how much would you pay for a woman that was 10, and you could keep her just like property? Or if if you could imagine you're part of an organization, a military, for example, how much would you pay for a strong bodied guard who had all the skills for protecting your property, firearms, espionage, search, and all that intelligent stuff. Human beings are actually extremely precious, which is my point. Not condoning slavery whatsoever, by the way. I'm just trying to make the point that human beings are very, very valuable. And any manager will tell you a good team, good employees, good staff are the highest assets of a company. Now, that sounds strange in our current environment, where people are always talking about automation and stuff like that. It's because we're in this environment where humans are degraded. People are not given the opportunity to show their best side, or even to acquire or learn the mental tools and the skills. So unfortunately, we have to teach ourselves. We have to learn how to survive in a society that doesn't value us or even human life. And we have to plan accordingly. Now, this has led a lot of people, and people that we associate with, to detach themselves from reality. I think you need to have an accurate gauge of reality, and it's not always easy. I know I've said it quite a lot, but it's not always easy to forecast, to predict events, which is quite often what you have to do when you have to have an accurate um, a gauge of where you are. You have to understand what will happen if you take a certain choice. Um, Sorry if I'm being a bit vague here, but it's a very complex uh, topic that I'm trying to engage here. But yeah, to summarize, predicting, forecasting what's going to happen next is the next stage of having an accurate gauge of where you are. And having an accurate gauge of where you are helps to counter the detachment from reality. Detachment of reality is one of the symptoms of insanity, which also comes when you become excessively mentally and emotionally detached, which happens when you're in a traumatic and distressful environment. And I think all of us are in traumatic and distressful environments. It's not recognized because it seems we're all fed, it seems we're all housed, most of us, but the precarity of it, what about tomorrow? What about the government's plans to reduce public services? What about the government's plans to Labour's proposing the forced conscription or the draft national service? Um, and I know every year they reduce social security and welfare. Homelessness is growing, and it's not something we need to research. We need to go onto Google, or Google's rubbish now. What's good? Whatever search engine. It's not something we need to watch documentaries to see. We can see it when we go to work or go to school or college or just walk down the street. We can see the decay of society, the decay of the neighborhood, and that results in a lot of people becoming detached from reality, and they do start blaming things that have nothing to do, like I mentioned before, where the wife blames the husband all of a sudden, or the social media influencer starts blaming his or her followers. The average Joe on the street all of a sudden becomes distressed, and he starts blaming the poorest, the weakest, least responsible segments of society. This is insanity, because really, if there's a problem or situation, you don't blame the person that has nothing on, or had no part in the decision making that resulted in that. You blame the person with the most responsible, the most power, who had the most ability to change that situation or to deal with that issue. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to talk about. I hope I it wasn't too unstructured what I wanted to talk about. I wasn't expecting to go on a big long monologue. Normally there's a few guys that just come in and say hello. I thought it'd be nice to just check in with everyone, but I am glad I was able to get it all out, because it is a very important issue. I think it's becoming more and more of a primary concern in not just men's, in everybody's everyday thinking. Uh, it is quite sad and distressful to see so many people suffering like that, and in turn, obviously, it makes me distressed. But oh, what's that little clip? That little clip I shared. Um, yeah, our greatest strength is being able to bear their burdens and not break as well. But that's not. I think that's not something we should take upon ourselves to bear the burdens of others. But yeah, I hope you took something from it. I hope you all keep mentally sane. Um, I and as usual, I say all this because it's something that I am going through, and I am processing myself. I'm figuring out, okay, what's the best timing? When is the go? What do I need to prepare? What events are most likely to happen? What is the worst case scenario? What is the best outcome? Uh, what can I do to reach the best outcome? These are all things that I'm constantly thinking about, and I know that it's becoming more and more common in everyday thinking for more and more people as well. Yeah, for those of you that are academically minded, it's a subject that is on the curriculum on many social sciences. It's called precarity. If you're studying business, of psychology, uh, many social sciences and subjects that touch upon um, social science. We talking about precarity.
Good morning, hope all is well today.
Oh, Douglas, don't recognise you, but good morning. Hope all is well with you too. I was just finishing, so yeah, do feel free to rewind the to the beginning of the monologue. But yeah, thank you for piping in there. It was nice to see somebody sending a comment. Um, but yeah, do take care of yourselves, gentlemen. I won't take any more of your time, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time when we'll have another exciting and topical subject for everybody. Okay, peace and salutations.